So today's video is going to be my first in a series about goth icons. So today's is Angelica Houston's Morticia from the Addams family. And so I'm just going to be doing that really classic black and white smoky eye with kind of that winged out shape and a red lip with like super pale white skin. And we're just going to emanate Morticia today. So I'm starting with the eyebrows and I'm going to use the NYX Black Brow Gel to get a like really super dark defined eyebrow. I'm just going to use a small angled brush and I'm going to start by kind of creating a fake arch. So what we're doing is making the eyebrows look a little bit more villainous without actually changing the shape too much. So my favorite way to do that, especially if you're someone who doesn't have very arched eyebrows naturally, is to draw in the inner corner lower than it actually is. So where the bottom of your inner corner starts, you're just going to want to start your line a little bit lower than that and then draw it up to meet where your natural eyebrow is. So that way it kind of creates the illusion of an arch at your arch point, even though really at your arch you're drawing where your arch naturally is, if that makes sense. And then the lower inner corner is just making it look like it goes up further, even though you're creating a new inner corner basically. And then I just take a bunch of the product and I fill in the outer tail once I have the top and bottom line drawn. And then I just sort of blend it in with that same brush because there's going to be less color deposit because of less product on the brush. And that's how I kind of blend in and create that ombre effect. And then when I get to those top and bottom inner corner lines, I just kind of blend upward and downward with the brush to enhance the ombre even more without any additional product. I also go in and I deepen the lines a little bit more just so that the brows are nice and carved out and defined. And I don't really have any excess product on the brush with this. I'm sort of moving around and dispersing product that already is on the brow. Then I'm going to take the whitest concealer at the drugstore that I've found. And it's the Covergirl Ready Set Gorgeous Concealer and it's the lightest shade. And I'm just going to carve out my brows like I normally would. And I just like to use the wand because I feel like it gives the best color payoff as opposed to a brush. And I just literally drag it along the eyebrows I've already drawn and I just make those lines really sharp and crisp, and then I blend upward with the wand so that when I go in with foundation later I don't have to blend super closely to my brow and risk messing it up. I can just blend out this concealer right here and get that out of the way. And then I just take a dense synthetic brush. This one's by Real Techniques. It's from their starter kit. And I literally just tap out this concealer. I don't really move the brush around, like I don't swipe. I mostly just tap and move the product around and make sure it's all nice and blended and diffused and looks natural like skin. And then I just blend a little bit of it down onto my eyelid and onto the inner and outer corners of my eyes because that's where I have a lot of discoloration. And then I pat it on the inner corner of my eyebrow to soften it even more and enhance that ombre effect even more. So I just tap whatever excess product is left on the brush on that inner corner. And then I'm going to put black mascara on my eyebrows. You can use whatever tinted brow gel matches your hair color. I just like to make the brows or the brow hairs look more defined and dark because that adds to sort of like the more natural effect of the brows. So this is just a black mascara. I run it up and down the brows. Then I'm taking MAC's Painterly Paint Pot and I'm just using the dense synthetic brush again. And I'm just using that as my eyeshadow base and I'm just running that all along my eyelid and blending it up into the concealer, and I'm just pressing it in until it's all blended and you can't see any lines where the paint pot is. And then I'm taking Cool Gray from the Lorac Pro 2 palette, and just on a fluffy brush, I'm gonna start blending this into my crease as my transition shade. So I like to start in the most round part of my eye, which is right up where the orbital bone sort of starts to meet the nose, and I just blend it back and forth in that area so I can get a lot of color deposit there. And then I just blend it side to side, and that way it can blend easily into whatever next part we start blending the transition shade into, if that makes sense. So I just blend it side to side until it's super diffused. It needs to be nice and smoky because we're going to go straight in with black next. And then I'm just going to put some on the outer part of the crease as well, and that's going to be like, again, the initial color deposit that we're going to blend side to side so it can meet where we put it before. And then I'm going to wing out that outer corner with the same transition shade, and that's just going to initially map out our winged out shape. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to deposit the color and then I'm just going to blend it out so that it can meet where we deposited the color before. Again, just make sure it's nice and smoky because black is what we're going in with next. And then at the end, I like to go in with circular motions and just blend the whole thing out, again, making sure it's nice and diffused. And then I'm taking a smaller, dense brush, and I'm taking the black from the palette, and I'm literally just gonna do the same thing, same shape. I'm just gonna put it slightly lower than the cool gray shade so that we have a nice gradient from black to gray. And so what I'm doing is really just pushing it into my natural crease, kind of where my eye turns into my orbital bone. And then I blend it side to side, but I'm not really concerned with this brush on smoking it out. I'm just trying to move the product around so it's even. We'll take the fluffy brush again in a minute and blend it out. Right now, we just want to place all the color that we're going to need. So place it again in the crease, same exact spots, just slightly lower than the cool gray. And then take your fluffy brush and just blend the whole thing out. I mostly just use circular motions for this since I'm not actually placing color. I'm mostly just blending two colors together. So I just go along the entire crease and our winged out shape, and I use circular motions and sort of back and forth motions if the product seems uneven, and I just move that all around. Then I'm taking my dense synthetic brush again, and I'm not putting any additional product on it. I'm just tapping around to sort of make sure we can mitigate anything that we blended up too high, because that can ruin the eye look and make it look messy. So just tapping whatever concealer is left over around the eye. And then for my lid shade, I'm using Snow from the palette, which is a shimmery white, and I'm just gonna pack this on really, really heavily, and I'm gonna make sure it meets the black all the way up in the crease. So I'm literally just packing this on so I get a really, really intense shimmery white color payoff, so there's a really good contrast. And then I just move it up to the crease. I'm not cutting the crease perfectly, but I am creating sort of a line so that if you look down, you have a nice line where the white and the black contrast. I am putting a little bit more extra black in the outer corner just to cover if there was too much white covering the black. And so you can literally just go back and forth with white and black and gray until you have the right color in the right places and nothing's covering anything, and you have mattes and shimmers separated. And then I'm moving to the inner corner, and I'm just placing the white there, and I'm making that inner corner really, really shine. I'm just packing it on in there and blending it back into the lid just so that we have that really nice dimension to the eye when there's reflectivity on the inner corner. And next I'm starting my winged liner. Winged liner is absolutely optional for this look. She is wearing it, but it's not super intense. So what I'm doing is just tight lining my upper lash line really, really, really thinly. And then I'm just creating a super, super tiny wing that kind of follows the wing with the eyeshadow that we made. So again, it's super small. It's not even that important. We just want to enhance the eyes a little bit more, and having a tiny wing is going to enhance the winged out shape we made with the eyeshadow even more. Again, it helps to have a little bit of eyeliner on your lash line just for falsies, but it is optional. I'm also going to tight line using just a black retractable eyeliner, and that's just going to help blend our lashes together and make the upper waterline look nice and black. I am just going to apply mascara to prep for falsies. It's important to make sure that you cover every single lash by moving in back and forth motions, and that's just going to make the lashes coarse and make it easier for falsies to stick to them. Now I'm going in with falsies, and these are the Ardell Lacies, and the reason I'm wearing them is because they're really thin and comfortable, and that's kind of important, especially with a look like this where the focus is not on the lashes. You could even forego lashes. I just don't like that my natural eyelashes are super short, so I always try to do them, but these are really thin and comfortable, so that's why I'm wearing them, just for a little bit of volume, but they're still comfortable and small. And then I'm gonna do my under eye concealer. I'm using the same concealer as before, and since we're doing a smoky eye, it's important to make sure that your under eye area is highlighted. That's just gonna make your face have a lot of dimension, and it's gonna look really nice. So I make sure to carve out that eyeliner to make sure the bottom is nice and flat, and then I just blend it downward in sort of a triangle shape where one side is the side of my nose and then the other side goes up and back towards my cheekbone. And then I'm just using a kind of a fluffier synthetic brush, and just to blend this out, I tap just like I did with the smaller synthetic brush around my eyebrows, and I blend it all the way back up to my temples. One tip is if you have excess product on your brush, you can place that in other places like over blemishes or whatever you have, and rather than waste it or just leave it sitting for next time you do your makeup. I'm also just going to set this with translucent powder. I'm just going to pat it on with a dense brush, let it sit, and then just wipe it off with another fluffy brush, and that's going to keep the under eye from creasing even better because it quote unquote cooked. And then I'm just going to move whatever excess translucent powder all over my face because that makes a really nice natural looking base for foundation. Okay. Back to the bottom of the eyes, I'm going to take a small shader brush and I'm just going to line my bottom lash line with the black eyeshadow. And I'm going to make sure it's nice and black down there and the line is nice and thin so that we don't blend it down too far. I'm just going to take another fluffy brush and I'm just going to buff that back and forth. And I'm even taking a little bit of cool gray as well, just in case the black isn't blending out. And I just buff that back and forth until it's nice and blended. We just don't want it to go down too far because she doesn't actually look like she has raccoon eyes. She has a really nice classic smoky eye. So we want to keep that just under the lash line. Go ahead and deepen up the black if you need to. I felt that it looked a little bit too gray, so I'm deepening it up just a little bit and then blending it out again. Now I'm putting black pencil on my waterline again, and I'm making sure to get in between each and every one of those lashes so that the entire lower waterline is nice and black, just like we did with the top. Then I'm applying mascara again, and I'm not going to put on bottom lashes. You can if you want to. So I'm just making sure there's a lot of volume down there by moving the wand back and forth and making sure I hit each and every lash multiple times and make them nice and dark and thick. And I pull the wand down to make them look nice and long like our lashes on top. Next, I'm moving straight onto my lips. I'm just gonna take any generic red lip liner and I'm just gonna line my lips on the bottom pretty much like normal. If you have wider lips, then you will want to overdraw the center a little bit, but I find that on my bottom lip, I'm good to go, especially with a look like this where I want the lips to kind of be more pouty in the center. So I just line my bottom lip like normal, and I just make sure to make it nice and perfect on the outer edge. It doesn't matter so much on the inside, but the reason we're using lip liner isn't to keep the lipstick from bleeding because we're gonna use a liquid lipstick, but it's to just make sure our lines are perfect. So then for the inner corner, I create an X where my Cupid's bow is, and I draw it slightly over where my Cupid's bow naturally goes so that we can create that false volume. And then now that we have an X, since we're creating those really 90-degree angle lips, you can just literally draw down like a triangle and connect it with the corner of your lip. This is so easy to do, and since it's just like perfect angles, it's really easy to make them even on both sides because you can just go in and literally just use straight lines to build your angles like you see me doing here. So make them as large as you want. Just make sure that the lip liner is really opaque there. If it's not opaque, then you'll be able to tell that your lips are overdrawn and it won't look good. So then I'm just gonna take the Sephora cream lip stain. It's the red one, I believe the number is 1. And I'm just literally gonna fill in the lips. We already have a line, so we don't have to worry about making these lines too perfect. It is important to get onto that Cupid's bow inside of those angles though, so that it doesn't look like we overdrew our lips. It just looks like that's how they naturally are. And I'm taking the concealer again and I'm just carving out my lips. That's why we did this before foundation, so that we could just carve out the lips with concealer, do foundation, then be done. And I make sure to blend that out just like I did with my eyebrows, just so that when we go in with foundation, we don't risk covering up that red. And again, just like we did with the lip liner and the liquid lipstick, it's super easy to carve these out because you have these perfect 90-degree angles. So it's just all about using a steady hand and making perfectly straight lines and then dragging the concealer up and then blending it out with a dense synthetic brush. On the very inner Cupid's bow, you didn't see me go in with the doe foot applicator from the concealer because I'm actually taking a super tiny brush just so I can get in there really precisely and make sure everything looks precise. So I'm just taking a little bit of the concealer and I'm just carving out those perfect 90-degree angles just like I was with the doe foot applicator on the larger part of my lips. I just want to make sure it's nice and perfect and then I'm not ruining my angles. And then now that the first layer of liquid lipstick has dried, I'm applying another layer just so I know that it'll last all night and it'll have the full opacity of the lipstick. Again, I'm going over the Cupid's bow again because that needs to be nice and opaque in order for it to look somewhat real. on the inner corner, I make sure to fill it in right even where it goes into my mouth, because that creates that angle on the corners that makes it look, you know, equally villainous and feminine. And then I'm just doing my foundation. I'm using the Hard Candy Glamouflage foundation in the lightest shade, which is the lightest foundation that I found at the drugstore. I really love it. It's super pale. And I'm just gonna blend that onto my ears, down my neck, into my hairline, all over my face, onto my nose, everywhere. And I'm just gonna make sure my skin looks nice and light. Another good, really light foundation is the Revlon Color Stay in the lightest shade, but this one's even lighter and it doesn't have as much of a pink undertone. The undertone of this foundation isn't as extreme. It's just really nice and neutral. It's not too beige, not too pink, not too yellow, which is why I really like it. It's just nice and light and it goes on like a dream. Next, I'm going to do my contouring, and I'm going to use the NYX HD Blush in Taupe, which is just a nice, super cool tone brown, and it's perfect for creating false shadows. So I'm just going to use a brush that's a little bit paddle shaped, and I'm just going to start carving out those cheekbones really high. In order to create the illusion of a higher cheekbone, I like to start up at my temples and then blend that down onto my cheekbone towards the corner of my mouth. And this just creates the illusion of having cheekbones that go all the way up to your temples rather than back to your ears, and just adds to that sort of like villainous, maleficent sort of look. So I just blend that downwards and then blend it at the top so that it blends upward into where my cheekbone shadow would naturally be. And then I'm just going to use the same color to carve out my nose. And this is just up to preference. I just like to so that my nose looks a little bit more thin, but I like to carve out the sides with a dense flat brush. And then I like to drag it across the center of my nose to break up the nose a little bit, and then blend it down the sides, and then put a little bit of the contour shade in my Cupid's bow. And then she has a nice bright pink blush, so I'm taking Mary Kay's blush in Strawberry Cream, and I'm just going to blend this into the contouring shade, and I'm going to make sure it looks nice and pigmented but blended. And that's how you can kind of pull off like such a dull pink blush, is by making sure the pigment is there but making sure it's blended upward really nicely. And then I'm just going to apply a highlight to my cheekbones to make them look even higher up. I'm also going to apply it to the center of my forehead just to bring some light and reflectivity there. I'm going to put it on the side of my Cupid's bow because it adds a little bit of poutiness to the lip. And I'm also going to put it on the tip of my nose, again just because it's my preference to make the nose look a little bit more doll-like and small. That's optional, as I've said. And then I'm just going to set my entire face with powder by just putting it everywhere and then blending it away with the brush, and that's just going to make sure our makeup lasts all night or all day or whatever. It just makes it last forever. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.